What's up, guys? Welcome to the Bladed Wedge Show. It's July 20th, 2020. We're just guys who love watching golf, talking golf, and most importantly, playing golf. I am Trey Pizzetti. I'm here with my good friend, Alex Checo. How you doing, man?
Good. What's up, Trey? How's your weekend, dude?
Great weekend. Had lots of fun. Had some family up to my house on Lake Michigan. So played a lot, or did a lot of water sports. Went water skiing, which was fun. Haven't done that in a while. And then got a little golf in as well.
Nice, man. So what's the deal? Like Lake Michigan, are there just like a bunch of lake houses around it? Like, what's the vibe like?
Yeah, I mean it's not too bad. It's just kind of like everyone has there's a bunch of houses, and Lake Michigan is huge. So everyone kind of has their own beach and stuff. But it's a good setup, especially when you can get days without much wind. You can really rip around on water skis, wakeboard, and stuff like that.
And there's multiple lakes, right? Or is there just one giant?
There's one giant, but there's like a bunch of different like bays, so it feels like there's kind of different lakes, but they're all the same body of water.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it's definitely beautiful up here. We had some family out from downstate and had a great weekend. But I'm actually off this whole week, so taking this vacation and gonna enjoy it, get some golf in. How about you?
Good for you, man. Nah, still just ripping the beach down in Seattle this weekend. So a little bit different than going to the lake. I was actually thinking about this weekend though, how I would want to go to the lake and like get on a boat and like just do that, because I've seen like a ton of like different snaps of people like on lakes this weekend. I was like, damn, like that looks fun as hell.
Yeah, there's good parts about both. I was lucky to spend that week down in New Jersey on the Jersey Shore, and love that. It's just a great time and a great vibe down there, and love sitting on the beach down and swimming in the ocean. And the lake is good as well. It just kind of has different qualities, especially with more boats on it.
Definitely.
If you guys don't follow us yet, make sure to follow us on Twitch and Instagram. That's the best way to keep up with what we're doing. Also, you can check our stuff out on golfwx.com. Moving into the Bladed Wedge tee sheet, we had the Memorial Tournament this weekend presented by Nationwide in Dublin, Ohio. Huge field. 47 out of the top 50 golfers in the world were there. Really, just overall, a really well played tournament. The course shape was something that was talked about a lot because they played back-to-back tournaments, the workday the week before, and then coming to the Memorial, and they really played like two different golf courses.
Yeah, I think this week played one of the hardest courses all year on tour, conditions-wise. I mean, the greens were super fast, rough was long. I think John Rahm said at one point, like a scratch handicap or a former club championship couldn't go out and like break like 100, which is insane, but probably accurate with what we saw from how the guys played the course this week. Like, it was super tough setup for them, so I can only imagine what it would be like for us.
Absolutely, and that rough looks so nasty. I heard they hadn't cut it in since before the workday, so it was like 2.5 weeks, and the guys were definitely struggling out of that. And if you missed your drive right or left in the rough, especially on the par fives, you were definitely laying up, which was just kind of crazy to see.
Yeah.
Most of the time, these guys are tearing it up.
And I think, and it was good that they did it that way, because you wouldn't have wanted to go out and play like the same golf course 2 weekends in a row. Like, I feel like they had to have changed some sort of, whether it was like a new tee box or like kind of different design on the bowls or the conditions, and that's what they did. And I think that's ultimately like how Jack wanted it to play.
Yeah, that superintendent deserves a raise, because to take the same plot of land, like you said, not moving any tees or anything like that, and having two drastically different golf courses, it was pretty impressive, and also just really cool to see what they can do in from a week to week basis, and in terms of making the greens and the course hard.
Oh, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, so that was awesome to see. And then the big storyline heading into the week was Tiger. He played pretty well on Thursday, struggled Friday, but got lucky to make the cut. And then, played all right over the weekend. But I think the main takeaway from my perspective was, he didn't make the cut. He got 2 more tournament rounds in the books, and kind of got to figure out how, those competitive juices again, and figure out where his back's at in terms of having a 4 days in a row. So I think overall it was a positive takeaway for Tiger for me.
Yeah, I think he looked good. I think we we called it last weekend. We're like, there's no shot he comes out and wins. But I think he will go out. He will make the cut, and this is exactly what he wanted it to be this week. Like, obviously, he wanted to go out and win. Like, he's the most competitive guy ever. But I think he knew that it's his first round back in 5 months. He has been playing down in Jupiter, Florida. He comes up to Ohio. It's a completely different style golf course. And I think he really just wants to get reps in. And I think this is what allowed him to do that. I think moving forward, he won't play in the 3M, but he'll play in that WGC before the PGA Championship. And then, like he's always been, his eyes are on the major championships. He's going to try and make sure his game is in peak form for that next major championship so he can keep adding to the list.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, like you said, it was pretty much on par from what we expected. If he would have missed the cut and not gotten the 2 rounds in over the weekend, I think that would have been a disappointment.
Yep.
He did get a little lucky with the cut moving back kind of towards him. But, yeah, we'll see what he's going to do. I'm sure he's going to work on his game over the next couple of weeks. Play it probably one more time, like you mentioned, before the PGA, and then I'm sure he'll be ready to go then. I'm a little surprised he didn't drive the ball better at Jupiter for the TaylorMade Golf charity event. He was absolutely striping it, and I know there's a lot of comfortability with him playing that course because he's played it a lot and knowing the lines. But I was really surprised he didn't at least drive it a little bit better.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the first hole he teed off on, but he striped a drive. He had like a wedge in, hit a wedge to like 5 feet and rolled in the putt. And at that point, I was like, wow, he could roll this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But now ultimately, his momentum slowed down middle of that first round. I think he shot like even par, and I think he wanted to be more like 2, 3, 4 under. And I think that kind of ultimately set him back for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it was just, a lot of things that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks or 12 weeks or so is just, like you have to clean up the mistakes in competition, the stuff that when you're playing out there, it doesn't matter, you're not putting out all those 4-footers or, hey, you're not focusing on the 12-footer. It's just really a different game when you get into competitive golf. And I think that there was a little bit of rust there that had to be knocked off, but that's kind of what we talked about last week. That was probably one of his goals.
And I think it was huge to have gotten out early and posted a couple good rounds, rounds 1 or 2, because the course got progressively tougher as the week goes on. So it was harder to make up strokes on Saturday and Sunday. So him kind of not going out and getting to 2, 3, 4 under by round 2, I think really kind of put him in a tough spot for the weekend where he had to play catch-up golf on a really tough golf course where it was hard to get the ball close to the hole. It was hard to make birdies. So props to Jon Rahm. I mean, he just played phenomenal golf.
Absolutely. Before we get to John, we're going to dive deep into him. But last thing I want to talk about was Bryson. Bryson obviously has kind of taken the tour media by storm with hitting long drives and really changing his body. But he had a little bit of a rough go of it on 15 on Friday, I think it was. He hit his drive left into kind of off of a hill in the rough, and he tried to hit a 3-wood and hook it to the green and piped 2 out of bounds, and then finally got 1 inbounds. I think he dropped down a club to hit that 1 inbounds, but he ultimately had to have a conversation about if a ball was out of bounds. It was a little bit short with the rules official, but he's an emotional player, so I get it. I don't think he was overall rude. And then he ended up taking a 10. So pretty interesting to watch him. I think he'll learn from it. But did you have any takeaways on that one, Jack?
I didn't. I actually did not see this happen. But obviously, a 10 on the hole just kind of screws you for the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of not recoverable. So I wonder if he kind of made the big number and was kind of just like, fuck it, like I'm done for the weekend anyways, like, or he like actually tried to like kind of come back and recover from that.
Yeah,
but,
the next hole he like smashed a high iron on a par 3 and had a putt for birdie. So I think he was still grinding, but at that point he was way out of it. And with 3 holes to play, there's just not much to recover. And then the funny part about it was Bryson making that 10 moved him from within the cut line to outside of the cut line and actually helped move the number back to keep Tiger on the weekend. So that was kind of just a crazy coincidence.
I wonder if he actually is thinking about, like, all right, he makes it 10. Like, what is his thoughts on the next hole? Like, obviously, he's a super competitive guy. Like, he's probably always thinking he's in it no matter what. But I wonder if there's any thought that goes through his head where he's like, nah, I mean, I'm out. Like,
100%.
It's going to be too hard to
because he was, at that point, I think he was like 5 off the cut line with 3 to play. Yeah. So he really would have had to go on birdie, 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 and then still might have not made it. So yeah. I mean, these guys are human at the end of the day. Like, that was such a big number.
Yeah.
You're not making a cut after a 10 unless you played some really good golf on the other 35 holes. But moving on to Jon Rahm, like you mentioned, amazing performance from him. He really kind of got off to that hot start the first 2-3 days, and the most impressive round for me was his 68 on Saturday. He said that was the best he's ever played. So, getting to that point and then being able to just kind of hold on over on Sunday was really the strategy because of how hard it was. And you didn't really see a lot of guys make moves Sunday. I think there was one guy who shot the leaderboard, but he played really well. Pretty cool to see him at number 1 with all the background of him being a Spaniard, with Seve being the second Spaniard to become number 1. It's really hard to realize that he's only 25, so he's a young guy, and we think about all these guys who are in kind of his class that are more on the American side, who are a lot more popular over here, but he could end up being the best overall. But we'll see how he starts to perform in major championship. But this will be a lot of confidence going forward.
Yeah, it's a big tournament for him to win. Like, huge. I gets him to the number 1 in the world. Always been a goal of his. He's been very transparent about that. He thinks he's the best in the world. Like, awesome. Like, he is a world-class golfer from every standpoint of, like, international and U.S. golf. I think the big thing about Jon Rahm and what we kind of saw this weekend, he's kind of a hothead. He's notorious for being, like, he'll be up towards the leaderboard, and then something will tweak him out where he'll make a double, triple, and it'll kind of pull him away from the tournament. I thought that was going to happen when he had that penalty stroke against him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, granted, he started with a 4-stroke lead, grew it to 8, and then towards the back 9, we kind of saw that shrink. So to me, it almost was like, wow, was this Jon Rahm being 25 and not having the experience of going out and closing a golf course? Like, is he not going to win this? So I think at the end of the day, he did a good job of, like, pulling his emotions together, going out, finishing a golf course on a super tough track. Props to him. Props to Jon Rahm. I guarantee you we'll see him win again down the road. No question about it.
Absolutely. And I thought that the timing of that penalty was kind of interesting because, so if you guys didn't watch or weren't watching closely, he started falling apart a little bit on the start of the back 9. And then he got to par 3, maybe, I think it's 16, and he hit just an absolute, he hit his tee shot went left of the green and really short-sighted himself in the rough. And he ended up chipping in. And it was really an amazing chip. Like, they compared it to Tiger's chip at Muirfield, and it was really hard as well. Like, it was pretty impressive. And then what they did is, of course, since it was such a good shot, they zoomed in on the contact. And when Jon Rahm placed his club down, the ball rolled back, maybe 1 dimple, but it did roll back, which makes it a penalty. And so they didn't tell him that until after he walked off the 18th. Long story short, it didn't matter because he had a 4-stroke lead at the time. So he took the strokes and signed. He won the tournament. But it was just kind of a really interesting scenario where if that would have been called at the moment, that could have changed. He walks off from your chip and birdie. Instead, it's a bogey. He keeps sliding back. That's kind of an interesting one. Or, hey, maybe he signs the wrong scorecard, gets DQ'd. So it was really just interesting to watch to see the rules officials work and see how that kind of plays into it. And, from my perspective, how it's slightly unfair, right? Because there's probably tons of guys who weren't on TV the rest of the week who had the same thing happen in that long of rough, and he's just because he's the leader and he had an amazing shot, they zoom in on it and they call it and see it. So it's just an interesting. It is what it is with the TV cameras, but I did see a lot of people talking about that.
And I think he did a good job, like post round addressing it. He's like the ball absolutely did move, and I honestly just did not see it during the. So he kind of cleared the air. He owned up to it, and I think that was like a lot of respect there. I mean,
totally agreed. I mean, it's a lot easier to own up to it when you still take the 2 strokes and you still win the tournament. Yeah. But I thought he handled it really well. I believe him in not seeing it. A lot of pressure in that situation. A little different than like the Patrick Reed and the bunker thing. Totally. But we'll see how that one kind of plays out. But I'm glad that he won. I'm glad it didn't have an asterisk on his performance, and super excited for him. The one kind of cool story I did hear is that at one point Phil bet another guy on the tour when John Rahm was an amateur that he would be a top 10 golfer one day. And so Phil won that bet. Obviously not, probably a couple years ago, but it's still a pretty crazy story with him now becoming number 1.
That is sick. I wonder if Patrick Reed was in John Rahm's situation, the media would have like spun it differently, or people would have had like different reactions to it.
I think so, 100%. Don't you?
You think they would have been like, oh, he's like cheating again?
I think people would have been a lot more skeptical because of his past. Like, definitely. It's just like when you have a track record like that, and also, when you're not as well liked on a personal level, you just don't get the benefit of the doubt. So I think people would have been like, oh, obviously that could have been a mistake, but it also, might have helped improve his lie, and he definitely saw the ball roll, like those kind of things.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
So, yeah, amazing tournament. Awesome to see. Checo and I were pretty fired up watching it this weekend. Really felt like major championship field, and we're really getting in the home stretch of getting to Harding Park early August. So we're starting to feel it, and I'm excited. Next week, we have the 3M Open at TPC Twin Cities. Pretty solid field. Matthew Wolff is was the champion last year, so he'll be there to defend. We'll be watching that and recapping that one next Sunday. And then, really the last thing we wanted to touch on is Tiger's next tournament. Do you have a good pulse on when you think that'll be?
It's got to be the FedEx St. Jude before TPC.
Yep.
Or, the PGA Championship. I think he needs reps, and I think it's more than just reps down in Jupiter. I think he needs, like, tournament rounds under his belt. So if he goes to WGC, plays there, game's fresh going right into that PGA Championship. I mean, do you agree, disagree?
No, I'm on board with that. That is a WGC, so big tournament. Obviously, Tiger probably wants to be there for that. There's a small part of me with his back that could see him trying to either not play or to play one that's not so close to the PGA to give him like a little bit to hold on to it. But I'm on your side. The most likely scenario is he plays that WGC and then goes right into the PGA. So it'll be interesting to watch. And I think I heard something this week that what he usually does is the Friday before he huddles with his team and decides about the next week. And that's obviously for tournaments outside of majors. So it'll be interesting to kind of see that in the next couple of weeks. And then moving on. Go ahead.
I was going to say, nobody will ever know until it's released. It's just it's so hush-hush that it's just such a toss-up.
Well, it's probably like 3 guys, right? It's probably Tig, his agent, his caddy, and then maybe like some sort of doctor. And that's probably who it is. It's crazy. I want to be on that call.
Yeah. Right? That would be insane.
Yeah.
Like, just being inside of his inner circle and, like, knowing what he's thinking about prior to anyone else in the entire world is ridiculous.
Yeah. Moving on to our rotating topic this week. We asked this question to our guests a lot, but we don't have a guest this week because it's Memorial. We wanted to make sure we had time to get to everything on that end. So we decided to take on this question ourselves. We're going to talk about our favorite PGA Tour player. We're kind of keeping Tiger aside for this one. Tiger's obviously been there since we were really young and has been awesome and is one of our favorites. But we're going to keep him out and we're going to go with more guys besides him. So Checo, you kick us off.
And this is even kind of a basic answer, but mine's Justin Thomas. I mean, I just love the fire he brings, like the energy he has, and his game is just so rock solid. It's hard to root against him.
Yeah, I'm a huge JT guy as well. I've been listening to some of his stuff with the Whoop podcast. I know he's gotten really into that. And then it was hard not to love him when he did the on-course announcing. I think he's going to have a long career on the PGA Tour, obviously, but I think he won't be done when he stops playing. He loves the game. He's friends with all the guys. And I think I would love to someday have him up in the booth and get more exposure to, more of his raw thoughts. Obviously, that's way down the road because he's got a huge playing career in the meantime. And as even right now, he's number one in the FedEx rankings for the season. So love him as well. My favorite guy, I'm going to have to go with Rory. I've always just loved Rory. I love his golf swing. I love the way he hits driver. It's just such an awesome swing. And, for a guy who isn't a massive, I think he's like 5'10", so he's tall, but he's not like, 6'4". He just bombs the ball a long way because of how good his swing is. And I've kind of always liked the attitude he brings to the course with the confidence and the swagger. You always know when Rory's playing well because you can see him walking with a pep in his step. And I like the way he also is always working on improving his game. He was one of the first guys that did try whoop on the PGA Tour, and he's also one of the guys who's not afraid to tweak what he's doing. And he really changed his body to become a better golfer. And I just respect a lot of the things that he does and a lot of things he stands for. He also will always speak out when he feels like there's something going wrong in PGA Tour that should be changed. So, I think he's a good leader as well, and a lot of the guys respect him.
Yeah, I think if there's one guy below Tiger Woods who's kind of revolutionized the game, I think you'd have to say Rory.
Yeah.
I mean, his presence at tournaments is felt, and I think he has a huge impact on the PGA Tour, but also world golf, like international golf as well.
Yeah, he has not the same level, but he has a lot of respect. When he shows up, guys know that this is going to be a tournament and that he's going to bring it because he is that good. He's when he's on his game, he's unbeatable basically. So that's I really like him. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have an interview this week. We wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time to talk over the Memorial. We'll probably be most of the big tournaments. We'll probably skip interviews so that we have time to really walk through in detail what we want to get through. But just a reminder, we're still looking for help. If you want to be our third, help us on social or video editing, shoot us an email, belatedwedge@gmail.com. Follow us on Insta and Twitch or on golfwrx.com. And then come and stay tuned next week. We're kind of alternating between Sunday night and Monday morning. But we will post on our Instagram kind of when we'll be live. But if you don't catch us live, you can always catch us on twitch.com or on podcast or on golfwrx.com. So plenty of ways to find us. If you can't find us, just shoot us a DM on Instagram. We'll shoot you some links. So thanks for watching or listening, guys, and we'll be back next week.
Later.